So far, my early returns have been excellent, much better than I even anticipated. I was big into fusion, had a bad experience with Cartiva, don't do a lot of joint replacements. And so I think, in the market, you're going to encounter a lot of people like that. And so for me, the sell to a fusion for most patients is okay. And for a lot, they just don't want it. And when you start to think about the traditional joint replacements or even a kylectomy, joint replacements you're worried about not working. Cartiva failed. The kylectomies don't typically work great. And the reason a lot of guys don't do the traditional joint replacement is because when it fails, it's a problem. And there's a lot of bone loss and there's a lot of complications. And revising it's really challenging. So for me, I think kind of the selling point that got me started with it, and I think the way I've kind of really been able to talk to patients about it has been, in my opinion, we're not really burning any bridges. We're not really taking away a lot of bone. And so if we need to ever do anything again in the future, all the options exist. It's not going to be some catastrophic complex revision. And so the patients who want to retain and preserve motion really like to hear that. And I think other physicians really like to hear that too. That's kind of the number one reason I sort of got interested in it. Was I'm leery of joint replacements. I do a lot of fusions, but yep, the market's changing and patients don't like to hear the fusion word. I started doing it and my PA kind of grabbed me and was like, "Hey, these patients, they're the happiest of all your patients, just so you know. They're walking in, they're moving the foot early, the swelling's minimal, there's really not a lot of pain." And so I've only had early experience with it, but I'll tell you, so far that early experience has been great. It's not a particular really challenging procedure. There's great bone preservation. So I'm kind of encouraged. A lot of orthopedic surgeons got really burned by Cartiva, me included. And one of the things that we got burned with wasn't just that it didn't work long term, but it was a miserable procedure in the short term. Patients were never happy. 1 week out, they hated it. 2 weeks out, they hated it. With this, the early recovery is amazing. And so, from my end, I think when you're out in the field and you're talking to other docs who are a little hesitant, because you will encounter hesitancy, there's no question about it. Burning no bridges, minimal bone loss is going to be kind of a good selling point, because I think a lot more doctors, and I get a lot more calls from colleagues and guys I train with that are saying, "Hey, what are you doing with these people that just are like refusing a fusion because they just don't want it?" And I've started saying, "Well, I'm actually doing this Accu-Fix now, and so far my results have been great, but I'm also really happy that I'm not taking away a lot of bone." So I think, there's a lot of positives. I don't think there's anything quite like this to sell on the market. So from that unique perspective, I think there's a lot of good things to talk about. And like I said, my early results, they are excellent. The patients are happy. So far for me, it's full steam ahead.